regular Warren Township District 121 regular school board meeting to order. And we have the board secretary, Natalia Martinez, is absent this evening. The school board calls for the board to appoint a secretary pro tem when the secretary is absent. I move to appoint Beth Pope as the secretary pro tem.
Second.
For the discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Do we need a roll call, Jean? I think we're all in
Yes.
favor.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, I don't believe we have reason to enter executive session, do we?
Roll call for attendance at the
Oh,
meeting.
roll call, I'm sorry, roll call for attendance.
Mr. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Carlson?
Here.
Mr. DeMonte?
Here.
Mrs. Martinez is absent. Mrs. Pope?
Here.
Mr. Schultz is absent. And Mrs. Squires?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Will you please join me, the flag's over there, in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Move to approve the agenda. Roll call vote, please.
Second.
Motion by Carlson and second by Anderson. Mr. DeMonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
5 yes, motion carries.
Thank you. I don't see any recognitions on the agenda. Oh, principals appreciation. What are we doing with that? I think we're going to appreciate the principals.
Got Rob here.
Surprise.
Any principals in the group here?
Good evening. We'd like to formally recognize our principals. Ms. Bertola is not here. She was not feeling well, but of course made it through the school day, but couldn't be here tonight. But I can't say how lucky we are to have such dedicated principals and have given us consistency over several years. That it sometimes is a problem at schools when they have a lot of principal turnover. Not here in Warren, we're very fortunate to have consistent principals and principals that do a great job motivating our kids, motivating our staff, and being consistent for our community.
Just want to credit Rob and Michelle's leadership. Over time, a lot of the great things that we are seeing in our schools are a direct result of the leadership and their vision for what services and opportunities we can provide for our kids. And they work really hard along with their teams every day to bring those visions and those conversations that we have here into fruition. So I'm grateful every day that I get to work with two such amazing leaders and the rest of their teams, Chuck and Laura, Chuck Bauer and Laura Kirk, our associate principals, and Matt Jones and Peter Kupfer, our assistant principals, are also some of the best leaders that I've ever been around. So we're very fortunate and grateful to have such a team of amazing leaders that we get to work with all the time.
Hey, yeah.
We thank you.
Thank you.
Peach,
Peach.
How many years? How many years?
any board members care to lavish further praise on the principal?
Nope.
None. None.
How many years?
This is my 31st year at Warren. Wow. So I think my eighth
Was
consecutive.
that
How many is
continuous, or did you
principal?
go astray and come back?
No, I've been here the whole time.
Wow.
So, how many years? 8. There was a couple years prior to that, and then
Right. Oh,
I
that's
stepped
right.
back,
That's
and then
right.
I returned. So we got Mr. Keeley.
Yeah, good
So-
idea.
You're going to give us 30 more?
No,
Give or take.
give or take.
He's already in the
Give or take
retirement
Three more.
track.
3.
No, but I appreciate our board support, strong administrative team, wonderful staff, and of course, our student body's awesome. So Warren's obviously a place I've called home for a long time, and have been here for a long time because it's important to me, and the success we have is a collaborative effort. I know Michelle and I are in those roles right now and, get to wear the principal title, but it's definitely a team effort by everyone with the success we have. So thank you to everyone. Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next up, we have public comment, and we do have one member of the public who wishes to address the board. That would be B. Jones. Will you step forward? You have 3 minutes.
Hi, B.
Don't be intimidated. We're just here
It's okay.
sitting here.
We're just folks.
Yeah, we're just people.
You can have 4 minutes if you like.
And trust me, he can't tell time, so it doesn't matter.
Okay, my name is B. Jones. I'm a junior at Warren. Why am I crying?
Nicole, step back. It's okay.
Earned another 2 minutes,
It's
so
okay.
don't worry
Yeah.
about
Take
it.
your time.
Take your time.
We're not
Okay,
going anywhere.
I prepared some stuff. I cannot do this. If I can get through this. So, as some of you know, in February of this year, Warren's preferred name policy was changed due to, like, a legal issue. I and a lot of other students who had, like, signed these forms and made use of the program are, jeez, like, are concerned about the future of, like, this problem, you know? Warren has since implemented a preferred name feature in PowerSchool, but this slot doesn't sync up with any of the other websites Warren uses, including Canvas, PowerSchool, and parts of people's Google accounts. I fully understand that this is a tech issue. I've also taken every possible step before this, and I've spoken to social workers, counselors, and Principal Bertola about the situation and progress towards fixing it. And I've been told that it would possibly be fixed by this spring, but what we need is for this situation to move forward at a faster pace if possible. Memos have been sent out to substitute teachers to make sure to, like, look at the preferred name slot, but the last 2 substitute teachers I've had in my classes have called out my legal name twice in a row, and that was, like, after I checked with them multiple times to make sure they had the correct name. And this thing is why I'm here. I've spoken to many other students who have signed the preferred name papers, and we'd really appreciate it if you could do something to protect those names more. Because when it comes down to it, this is pretty much a privacy issue. The sharing of a name like a legal name in the case of a transgender student should be entirely up to that student and them alone. Because when a child's legal name is displayed on the board, called out in class, or printed on an attendance sheet, jeez. Their privacy is then violated, and that name is put into the hands of those around them, and they have no way of knowing if those hands can be trusted. Sorry,
You got it. You got it. We got all the time in the world. Don't worry.
jeez.
You know, they say that one of the greatest fears is death in public speaking. And you're doing fine. Take your time, take a breath, it's okay.
Okay, that doesn't just put the kid in an uncomfortable spot, but that effectively puts them in danger, because trans kids get harassed and bullied just for being who they are already, and this can get so much worse if the people harassing them know their legal name. And with this policy as it is right now, there's no longer a real safe space for trans kids at Warren. Man, okay. Ideally, in the end, the goal is that this be fixed entirely and trans students' legal names aren't really shown anywhere where other people can find them as easily as they can right now. But I understand that this may take a while. But because it's a problem that requires some attention as soon as possible, I'd like to suggest some solutions for the short term, if that's okay. For me, a possible way to handle this would be to have, like, more control over the printouts, because as I understand right now, they're automated. So what works best, in my experience, is crossing out the legal names on a sheet before the substitute sees them, so that the only thing they see is the preferred name or the last name. Because if teachers see a legal name, whether it's like a substitute or not, it's just like the beginning of the year, the chance that they call it out instead of the preferred name, whether by accident or not, increases. And the only way to communicate clearly that the name should absolutely not be called out is to remove it entirely, in my experience. Discouraging teachers from using PowerSchool spreadsheets and seating charts would also help, because when they put it on the board, it shows, like, the legal name and everything. What I'm worried about is the names on sheets actively being called out and shown on the board. And just by changing these things, you'd be creating a better environment for us, and we can really improve the lives of trans students at Warren. Thank you so much.
Hold just a sec, don't run away.
Oh, nuts.
I missed your first, you did a great job.
I get it.
You got it all done. So now, now it's the easy part. I just want to ask, you said something in the beginning that, I know we're all sitting here looking really important, but we don't have the slightest idea about a printout in a classroom versus, you know what I mean? So can you help me understand what you said at the very beginning? You said in Power School, but in other apps, it's this, that. Could you either read that again or explain to me what you said?
Okay, so basically, in February of this year, kids used to be able to sign this contract, basically, that was to say, like, their name is going to get changed in Power School, and it's going to be, like, different in the system, and up until February, that worked, and then it didn't. So I went and I talked to a bunch of people about it, and I figured out that it was because of this new law about legal names, right? Jeez, okay. So, basically what happened is they tried to put in this, like, preferred name slot. Like, this is their preferred name.
In Power School?
In Power School,
Okay,
there's a
thank you.
preferred name slot. But it's not really working or, like, sync.
Follow through the system.
No, it only works with the legal name.
Got it.
So,
I can understand what you're describing. I can
Yeah,
see how that
you got it.
happens.
Yeah,
And you're so brave to come tell us. Thank you.
very brave.
We'll work on it. You can
Thank
trust
you.
us on that.
Danny's not here to address it. Can we have an administrator, maybe could talk a little bit about that, address it? Is there anything we can do or can't do?
Just to be clear, we're moving on from public comment to,
Discussion.
Discussion.
Yeah.
okay, just for clarity's purposes.
Yeah, we're moving on to board discussion of visitor comments.
Okay.
So what questions can I answer?
Is there anything we can do? Is there anything we can't do?
So I'd have to speak with our data systems manager to find out exactly what's populating, and because like when you, in Power School, you have all these fields that have different data points and things, and I understand what our student is talking about, that like there's a preferred name field and then there's a legal name field, and the legal name field is what's populating in things like the printouts for class rosters or in the like in the seating chart function. When so I can follow up with our data systems manager to see if there's a way that we can change that. Some things in Power School are customizable and some things are not. So those are things that we can look at and try to improve upon. In terms of populating in different areas such as Google or Canvas, that information is passed through some ways it's passed through Active Directory, which is our back end, like the brains of our network, is where all the accounts are created. And there's some rules that we have to follow within Active Directory about how we name accounts and student names on those accounts. But then there are also places where Canvas pulls from Power School. So it's a matter of like what fields is it when we pull from Power School, what fields does Canvas have to pull, and how are we populating that data? So there's a lot there that we can look into and try to see what we are sending, and is there a way to update what we were sending to make sure that the right information is visible.
I'd venture to say, you know, it sounds like there's been a lot of work done prior to coming here, and I appreciate all of that groundwork that you've done. And it sounds like there may not be a easy solution. I'll give you that one. But maybe we could just, at this point, suggest we'll take a deep dive into it and see what types of solutions we can come up with if we need some, and readdress it at another time.
Absolutely.
That'd be fair.
Yes.
I would think at very minimum, it would be relatively easy to direct it to use the preferred name versus the legal name in the one database that they're talking about. It would be very minimum that. But we'll find out, I'm sure.
Let them do their homework. And I just want to say, though, I so appreciated in the presentation, the offering of a solution. So that is something we can definitely explore too. So thank you.
Follow up?
Thanks, Joe.
Yep.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Committee reports is next, and Christopher Geocaris, I think, needs to turn around and come back and give us. Curriculum Committee.
So the curriculum committee met last week. The main focus of that meeting was to discuss the curriculum guide, proposed curriculum guide changes for the 25-26 school year. So the committee reviewed those proposed changes, new classes, updates in dual credit, and brought forward the information that I will present later on tonight.
Okay, Superintendent Danny's not here, he's on the way, so do I need a motion to change the agenda to put that later, or can we just do that?
He usually just says if anybody has any questions about it, so
Okay,
I don't know if anybody does, but.
so do you want to go to the consent? What, we're going to pass up all this? Treasurer's report, everything?
No, we can't pass up to Mayor Hood.
Mayor Hood, went through,
He's in the partnership,
where is Mayor Hood?
report.
Partnership, there we go.
Village
Okay,
of
gotcha.
Gurnee, Mayor Hood.
Okay, we have the honor of having Mayor Thomas Hood here for us today, and you're going to tell us about what's happening with the village.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate that. Just to start, the partnership between the village and the high school is of critical importance to me and to the village itself. It's if our education and our students aren't flourishing in the village, then the village doesn't flourish. So what you do, and I appreciate what you do in volunteering here, that making sure that the high school that I went to, I don't know, it's almost 50 years ago, so I hate to say that. I suppose 1978 was my graduating year, as I just have a special affinity to Warren Township High School. It just, for 4 years, it was awesome for me. The teachers and just the recall of the teachers and the things I did in high school were like they happened yesterday, and maybe for you guys it's similar. It's like sometimes you think 50 years ago, how could it have such an impact? And for me, it's a time in my life and many students' lives that are very impressionable. So the teachers that you have and how it's run is so critically important. And then for having the high school to have the reputation it does is of critical importance to whether the village is successful. At the time before the referendum, there was some discussion with some builders and some other businesses that said that they wouldn't come to town if the referendum wasn't passed. And that was just serious talk with the village and with myself to say that this is of critical importance. We recognize that we're at crossroads here and that the negative effect that the high school would have, they recognized, and certainly you guys recognize that. So I just really appreciate that the referendum did pass, and just so many good things have happened since then. So thank you for that. So a little bit about me. Some of you already know that pretty much everything I say tonight I'm going to put under the covering of that. I just really believe that I just submit just my life and what goes on in the village to God, and trust that all the good things that go on are His responsibility, and then I could be blamed for the rest. So family, actually just some of my grandkids, just had one 3 days ago, so we are up to 4 grandchildren with a 5th one on the way. So just really enjoying that part of my life, this time of the life with them, and they live nearby. They live, one lives about 750 yards away, and the other one lives about 1,500 yards away from my house. So I'm a blessed man. So that's really worked out well. Job, I'm still a full-time lawyer. Sometimes people think that I'm a full-time mayor. I'm not. Just pretty much all of the suburbs around here, they're part-time mayors. There's a few that, like Ann Taylor in Waukegan or Leon in North Chicago, are full-time mayors, but that's not the way it works here. And actually that's good for me because I really trust the staff that is in place in the village. And for me to micromanage the staff and then also be a full-time lawyer is impossible, which they can thank me for, is that I'm not in their business. Pat,
I saw in the paper today the mayor of Rosemont earns $240,000. I thought you might want to move down there.
I did hear that. I did hear that, yes. My $12,000 is a little bit different than that number.
You're part-time.
I am part-time, that's true. But it is helpful, because what ends up happening is that they're very responsive to me, staff is, but at the same time, they know what they need to share and they know what they don't need to share. And I just really trust them. They're just really good at their job. They're good humans. I just enjoy working with them. The closer I work with them, and I think you probably have experienced the same thing in the high school, is that from a distance, they seem like they're pretty good, and when you get up close and personal, it's like, wow. And I think that happens in our Citizens Police Academy, where citizens get to see how police officers actually interact and how important the job is to them and how they are quality people. So for me, it's been the same thing. And our boards are the same way. I really appreciate our current board. A lot of experience on there. I was just talking that Jeannie Balmas has been on the board for 24 years. Cheryl Ross, I'm not sure how many years she's been on there, but her dad was a mayor prior to Dick Welton, so I mean, that's the history that she has in here. Karen Thorstensen volunteers for virtually everything that I ask her to do and more. Quinn O'Brien is a great promoter. He does a great job at that. Greg has been on for, I'm not sure, many years, 16 years, I think. So we really just have a really good board that has a broad breadth of experience. Kevin Woodside, being a police chief at Gurnee for almost 30 years. So to me, it's a broad range of ability and really sensible interactions. And it doesn't mean that we all get along perfectly. We've had a number of disagreements over time, and actually just recently we've had some issues with the east side, as you know, with the pads issue, and it's been difficult for us to navigate through that. And we're still feeling some of the sting from that. So it's bumps and bruises, and I hope that we come out of that okay, but that probably has been our biggest challenge. In recalling it, I don't think I've ever been, I was a trustee for 8 years and now mayor for 4 years. I don't think we've ever had an issue where we had neighbors opposing neighbors. We almost always have neighbors opposing businesses. And it was easier for the board to then, you oftentimes will go along with your neighbors and say, yeah, we don't really need that business. And there was a truck dealership that came through and was relatively easy for them, even though it was a long drawn-out process for them to identify with the neighbors that really didn't want to see it there. And in this case, there were neighbors on both sides of the issue, so it was difficult for that to be navigated. And like I said, there's still a lot of work to be done moving forward. So just some facts about Gurnee that I just find are interesting to me. We just have a little less than 31,000 people that are in Gurnee, 64th largest community in Illinois out of 1,296. There's a lot of tiny towns down in southern Illinois. So we have 1,233 businesses in town, 23 million visitors annually. As I ask how we calculate that number, it vacillates a little bit, 20, 26, but we just have a lot. And when you take a look at our departments, like our police department, is having 71 sworn police officers is too large for 31,000 people, but probably not large enough for 23 million people. So that's always a struggle for us to make sure that we are safe. And that's my number one goal. If I had to say one thing to anybody, what was the most important thing to me in running a city, it's safety. Because if we don't have safety, then, and I think it's definitely true in the school as well, we could have businesses doing great, we could have residents having fun, but if we were living in an unsafe community, I've lost. So to me, that's the number one priority in everything we do. We have 228 full-time employees. We trumpet our no municipal property tax, and it's always a difficult thing to go through that because it's unusual. Most villages have a property tax that they use, and we're blessed to have businesses that generate sales tax, amusement tax that allows us to function without taking money out of our citizens' pocket. However, our real estate taxes are still high. So it'd be better if our real estate taxes were half of what they were for everybody else, but I can't say that. They're lower, but not that much lower. So that's something that we still need to work on. Our debt is very low. We actually have just one, little less than $4 million now, I believe. We built a water tower, and they gave us an interest rate of 1.8%. So we have not been able to bring ourselves to pay that off since our money is making more than 1.8%. I'd like to say we have no debt, but financially that wouldn't be a good idea to do at this point. Just a ton of things that I'm really interested in doing, and really what it boils down to, instead of going through all of this, is I really enjoy seeing community members working with each other, playing with each other, just the neighbors getting out. Like lately, the block parties have really been enjoyable for me. Trying to get people to come into a board meeting or to even coffee with the mayor is difficult, but if I go to their block party, very open to talk, they're enjoying each other. It's really an enjoyable thing for me to do. And this year we had 20 block parties that we had sponsored. We contribute $500 to each of the block parties, and the police and fire come out, and I come out when I can, and that's just really enjoyable for me. So on the bottom, those are some of the things that are still left for this year. We still have the Halloween Fall Fest just happened at the Gurney Park District. It was really a hit. Lots of people attended. We have Turkey Trot that will be Thanksgiving morning. Holiday Train is December 5, I believe, and the Holiday Lights is December 7. So it's not on the same day, thank God. We had that one year where it wasn't on the same, where it was on the same day and it was a disaster, but that happens, right? So, Teacher of the Year Award program. I want to thank you for how you've participated in that program. It has gone way beyond my expectations. Each of the school districts have really made it their baby, where they've really held up other teachers to say, hey, this is what a great teacher looks like. And I guess in beginning this 11, 12 years ago, that wasn't part of my thought. I just thought it'd be nice to recognize teachers. On a sad note, and Don Henderson's my stepfather. He is very, very sick. Not likely to last the month, probably. So I'm just sad to say that. He's 95. He'll turn 95 this week. And he's been pivotal. He's the second gentleman in, and that's actually one of his sons. And Don's really been a pillar of the community in so many ways that he's contributed to the police department, to, I mean, pretty much any of the larger structures in town you'd point to, they had their hands in building. JJ's was the construction company that he was the owner and president of. So he's just a great man. I was talking to him tonight, and just really still very present, and just had just a lot of great things about Gurney, talking about Gurney and how much Gurney had given to him, and how he's really been able to reciprocate that in a lot of ways. Gurney Youth Scholarship, this is something that actually I've talked to Steve a little bit about, and something that the village is interested in expanding, is that we'd like to support more students that are involved in scholarships and providing scholarships to them, and maybe not your standard everyday scholarships, maybe students that could use that extra push to be able to go to CLC or somewhere else. We'd be interested in participating in that. This year, we have, they call it Gilly, is the name of their group. They started as Warren Township High School students. Some of them are high school students, and some of them are college students that have graduated. This is Bryson, who has the microphone. He's been the center of that. I met him 4 years ago, probably. And if any of you know him, he's just a dynamic gentleman. His smile is a killer smile, and he's just a bright, bright young man. And trying to average down probably the average age of our village board is 65, I guess. Somewhere in there. And Bryson, my guess, is 22. He's not on the village board yet. But I just have to say, just the thoughts and ideas that they have is just, they're revolutionary in a lot of ways. So I just so appreciate him, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that. And in the future, I'd like to be able to connect with the high school to see if there's ways in which we can work out scholarships that I think would be beneficial for both of us. I'd like to see the village step more into that. We have some extra funds that we'd like to invest in our students. So I appreciate the opportunity. Let's see. It's been a fun thing for me. My wife has been part of this big Great Lakes, and Danny's been nice enough to come and golf in these the last several benefits over at Bittersweet. It raises money, as it indicates. It's raised almost $190,000 in the last 3 years for these adults with special needs, bright young men and women that just have difficulty fitting in. They're unable to communicate. Some of them are nonverbal, but yet really smart. But it's difficult. If you were to meet them on the street, you wouldn't really know what to do. And this group really provides them a way in which they're able to be productive, They sell things, sell fudge and make fudge, and meet 4 days a week and build relationships with each other. So it's really been a blessing for me to be involved with that, and for my wife as well. Let's see. So business, I'm not going to go through all the details on this other than to say that we like to invest in businesses. It's one of those things that when you run a business, actually in the real world, there's an investment and you take a risk, and then you hope for a return. And in our case, we have grants that we provide. There's a $10,000 impact grant that we offer to businesses. There's some limitations on how that's brought out. And then there's $50,000 grants as well. And it's a sharing. It's that they have to put in $10,000 and we put in $10,000, and there's, like I said, there's some requirements that go along with that. But we found that just what it does is it stirs the pot for them, is that they start to think beyond. It's like they couldn't even have begun to think, well, we can't afford that project. It's like, well, if it's half the price of what it would have been, then they could afford it. So we have Ellen Dean as the Economic Development Director that does a great job with that. And Matt, if you haven't had the opportunity to meet him, he's works with the community, but he also works with the grants as well. And he does a great job in terms of connecting with each of the businesses. And believe it or not, it's working with them to encourage them to spend the money. Is that you'd think that it'd be easy if you gave someone $10,000 that they'd be all over it, but sometimes they're so busy running their businesses that they don't have enough time to take the money that's being offered. So he does a good job of tracking them down. I do Tom's Tours. Some of you might see that online. I've really liked that over the last 3, 4, 5 years. You just don't know how many businesses there are in town and the pride that people have with their businesses, no matter how small or big. There's a gentleman that runs a packing business that he's been in business for 25 years. And the excitement he has over packing peanuts is beyond belief. And just the pleasure he has in running his business, Mark is his name, Mark Levine. And it's like just little pieces all over town that are like that, where people just really like what they do and they give it their all. And it's been enjoyable for me just to hear some of those stories, and then to give them a little publication through our social media and be able to get out more about their business. We partner with the Chamber a lot. Chamber does a great job here in town, the ribbon cuttings and just bringing businesses together. Lately, we've been doing quite a few get-togethers where they just get a chance to be able to share with each other about what's going on in their business, and sometimes making business with each other.
Thursday afternoon.
Right, exactly. Police department. This is for, let's see if I think my next slide, nope, it doesn't. And I'll go back, I'll just talk about the police department now. The thing that I would want to communicate is that I really recognize that our SROs, our special resource officers, are here by invitation of you. That it's, you operate the school, we don't operate the school, obviously. Some people think for some reason I operate the school, and if it's going well, sometimes I don't say much, and if it's not going well, I point a finger over there and tell it's all Danny's fault. But in any event, it's, we really like the opportunity to be able to partner here. The SROs, that we have 5 SROs now. 2 of them are assigned, as you probably know, one to Old Plain and one here. And that's super important to me. And again, it's being proactive. It's not something that I want to have a regret over. I don't want to look back, and if there happens to be a shooting, I don't want to be thinking, oh, we should have done this, we should have done that. And the officers that we have involved, not only the SROs, but we also have detectives involved in doing the lockdowns and checking those things out, as you guys well know. And that's top of the list for us, is that if that doesn't work well, then we're not doing our job. So I just appreciate you having an open door to that and sharing information. I can just tell you that from what I've heard from other mayors and other places, other school boards, sometimes aren't so excited about that. They figure that that's their business and kind of get out of our business. And some other places don't spend the money on SROs. So thank you for that. It's just, it's something I think is absolutely needed. And it just is so different. When I was in school, if we had a police officer in school, it was a really bad thing. It's like, why do you have policemen in your school? You must be a horrible school. And these days, it's just seems to have flipped, at least from my viewpoint, is that if you have a police officer in school, building relationships with students is a really good thing, and it's a deterrent as well. So thanks for letting us do that. Let's see. So I would just say that from financially, even through COVID, oddly enough, we had 1 year in which Six Flags closed, which is about a $2 million hit to us. But beyond that, the other businesses in town have gone, let's see, should I use a financial term? How about gangbusters? Should I use that term? It's like they've just really have done really well. And Gurney Mills I'll use just as an example. Gurney Mills currently is 95% occupied. That they've done a very nice pivot to doing more entertainment in the mall itself, which has helped take some of the relief off of the retail, but nonetheless the retail has been really strong. There's been, even on the ring roads over the years, where we've had some difficulty with Toys R Us leaving. Now we have Texas Roadhouse building in the front, and Ashley's Furniture is taking over the Toys R Us location. On the Saturn dealership on the other side, where that's been vacant for 15 years, a long time, there's an upscale used car dealership that's going to be going in there this coming spring. So it's been a lot of activity on the outside, and on the inside there's just been, if you walk through the mall, if you haven't been there recently, you'll be surprised at how full it is. And their commentary, the leadership there, Randy Ebertkowski, Kelsey, just they've been really working really well with us as a village to make sure that it remains full, as it really generates a lot of income for us. And it's a safe place. They've also invested in having a dog present, and they have their own officer, not to mention our own substation at the mills. So it's a safe place to be, and it's been very successful. I'm really proud of that. Let's see. Budgeting, I think just like what you've experienced, is that we are conservative, but in an environment where we have plenty at this point, budgeting is entirely different. We keep upwards of 70% in a revenue account that's held for our benefit, so that if something goes south, we're prepared for that. And actually, we've had to enact an ordinance that allows us to, that's the limit, is that if it goes up to 70%, we're not going to hold more than that. Because as residents begin to wonder, when you build that war chest, it's like, well, are you really saving us any money? Shouldn't you be spending the money you receive from, whether it's from property tax or sales tax, doesn't really make any difference. And we agree with that, is that we need to put that in play, but yet be really conservative with what we do, and be careful with how we spend our money. You know, at the village, we work with 5 different unions, so that's something that we're always balancing in terms of how we interact with them. When we do one thing with one union, then the other union wants to do the me too. So how we negotiate with them is important, but at the same time, we want to have our people be some of the best paid in the county. We want to have the best employees, so we want to invest in them. But at the same time, we can't be crazy with the amount we invest, because in the end, if we have too high a payroll, then we're going to be in trouble. But at the end of the day, the reality is, when we enter budget season, I'm sure the same is true for you, there's not a ton of decisions made. It's like 80% of it's already asked for with the payroll already out there, and the other expenses, there's maybe 20% that we really talk about in terms of how we're going to invest in a particular year. Our infrastructure, it continues to be something we obviously invest in. With the roadways, for instance, one of the ways in which we do it equitably. We hire a company that actually rides throughout town, and the vehicle that they employ evaluates the pavement, so that the pavement is rated, so that every year our engineer will go through and we repave those streets that have the lowest rating. So when someone says, how come whatever their road hasn't been paved, there's a direct relationship, and they can take a look and say, you're scheduled, you're going to be year 2, and your rating on your road is a 58. And we're doing, right now, there's some that have 40 ratings or 34 ratings, and there's a actual method by doing it, which is really helpful for me, so that if they do my street, they don't think that I've somehow convinced the engineer that my street needed it twice this year or something. So it's been, it's a good process. Capital projects, you can read those for yourself. There's a lot of things going on. Several years ago, walkability was the #1 issue with residents, and we've invested heavily in sidewalks and pedestrian ways, and we continue to do that to make sure that we're linked up best we can to any of the things that the county has as well. And that's been, there was a committee that was, or commission that was put together about 5 years ago that put together recommendations, and we still to this day follow that list of recommendations in terms of installing our sidewalks. Communication, #1, we try every imaginable way, and I think I was talking to Candy, and I just want to, we're on the same wavelength, I think, that you guys are, is that your video was awesome. It was really well done. I'm jealous. We're late to the party on that, but just, you did a great job in putting that together. It was very watchable and very informative, and some of the things that, I suppose me being old-fashioned, I'm saying, well, isn't the newsletter enough? No, it's not. No, it's not. So in any event, it's just like learning from our partners. I think that's been, we'd like to take up, and if you don't mind me copying that, we're probably going to do the same thing in not too long from now. Other ways that we get out there, I've talked about the block parties, but we do training in the park where we hit 6 of the parks every year. To go out to show our equipment. The police dogs go out and do a presentation. The police is, as you know in town, the police department is probably the most active in terms of getting out there. They just do a great job of getting out and doing a variety of things with the community, which I really appreciate. Sean Gaylor is one of the main police officers that does a great job in organizing all those things. Those are just some of the things that we're coming up with. New website coming in 2025. Yeah, just I think I already talked about our recruitment. It's an ongoing issue. I mean, it's finally we've caught up with the police department. We're just a couple shy. The fire department's a couple shy. To talk about communications, I don't know how much you've heard about the 911 that's going on in, Steve will know, that's going on in Lake County. Lake County board did an awesome job of building a facility. It's almost built to allow for the consolidation of 911 that allows Gurney and 20 plus.
Gurney led the way on that. We thank you.
Yeah, it just, right. So Pat Mutes and Brian Gosnell, members of, really were a big part of that, as well as the fire chief as well, that were really instrumental in seeing that happen. And really what it's all about is seeing that the length of time in which, if you make a call into, like for instance for us, we would get a call into us, and let's say it was somebody in the county, then we would transfer it to the county, and then you lose time. But when it comes into a centralized facility, that transfer doesn't happen. So if the transfer takes 10 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever it is, it just means that much shorter of a time, so people have a better chance of being saved. So that's been a big investment for us, and actually it'll save us some money, but ultimately our communications portion will probably leave the village. We might have a backup place to the 911 facility in Libertyville, but it won't be the same as it has been. Diversity, I think you can read through there. It's for whatever reason with our hiring practices, they've remained largely the same. I think the way we advertise is different. But oddly enough, especially with our police department, there's been, I think currently there's 13 women that are police officers, which is drastically different than it was. And the fire department's a bit behind. They only have two ladies. But it's really changed in a lot of ways. And they look like they're 12 years old, some of them, but it's like there's really a youth movement among the police officers and fire department, and just really well trained and excited to serve the village. That just gives you the facts about the police department, the fire department, and the community development department. I usually don't talk much about the community development department, but Dave Ziegler does a great job in terms of balancing between safety and working with the businesses to allow them to be able to flourish at the same time of us not sacrificing anything in life safety issues. So it's been a good experience for us with Dave. There's a lot of multifamily that's been looked at or growing. It's single family. I'd have to say that our number of permits for single family homes are probably, maybe I can count them on one hand every year, just not many happening in town. Businesses continue to grow. There's still a lot of construction that way, so that's kept the Community Development Department busy this past summer. Let's see. Talked a lot about these already. Just there's a lot of opportunities for events in town. Just would encourage everybody to be a part of that to the best they can. We're looking to just provide every different relationship. We've done it with the high school, obviously, with the Park District is a great partner for us, the library. We have quarterly meetings that Danny attends that has the three school superintendents, has the library, has the Township, Elmer Fallis, myself. Pat Mutes usually comes, the village administrator, and the Park District, right? So it's a good group. It's a good chance that we usually meet 4 times a year and just share ideas, or if there's something in particular that's going on, it gives us an opportunity to check that out. And probably most of all, it lets me be able to pick up a telephone. And since I've met Danny, I know him enough to be able to pick up a telephone and talk to him, and he knows who I am and I know who he is. So it's a nice connection for me. And I think the other members feel the same way. It's a good way to get to know each other. Let's see, so environment, that's always on our minds. You know, frankly, it was kind of on my mind until ETO came along a number of years ago, and I recognized that we did a good job with the environment, but we weren't really focused on it in a lot of ways. And actually, MEX here at the high school has been a really great addition for us with our Environmental Sustainability Committee. Karen Thorstensen is the trustee that is the chairman of that. And a number of MEX students over the last several years have participated in, whether it's getting the word out or whether they're at the recycling events. It's a great connection for us and them. So anything that we can do to further our environment in the village, then we try to do that. ETO continues to be an issue for us. We actually I'm working with some additional legislation that would require fence line testing around Vantage. Oddly enough, the way the legislation came through for ETO was that for sterilizers, people that sterilized medical equipment, like there's some companies that did that, they were required to do fence line testing. And for those that didn't sterilize, then they didn't have to do fence line testing. Advantage, the one particular company in our village, is a non-sterilizer. So I talked to Rita Mayfield, and she's working on legislation that will be proposed hopefully next year that would require that to happen, so that they would have to provide that testing. And even though that testing with Medline is the sterilizer just outside of Gurnee that has that testing in place, the testing over the last several years has been positive. It hasn't been a negative thing for them, but it's a question mark for anybody that we want to know what's going on. Advantage, they have a number of testing already going on internally, and that's something the Illinois EPA oversees, but it's something we want to do. Oh, sure.
Positive for them.
Oh, sure.
When we talk about testing, it's positive.
Thank you.
Could you clarify that?
Went in my mind.
Okay.
It's been positive in terms of that it showed that it's not vastly different than what they were testing internally. So the idea is that it goes through and shows that what they're doing internally was being respected externally as well.
Validated.
Right, thanks.
Okay. Sure.
And for Vantage, we hope that the same thing would be true, but if it's not, then we want to show that then something else has to be done.
Would that be independent testing, or is they self-test?
No. Yeah, it's not, even what they currently do is not self-testing. So there's a company that...
Didn't the health department do it, or they did
No.
at one point?
No. Montrose is the independent company that actually, one of the things is that they used to, Montrose would do the testing. They would actually then send the information to Vantage, and then Vantage would send it to us. So we stopped that stopped that communication where Montrose now communicates directly to us. Additionally, the Illinois EPA does spot surprise checks where they'll come in and actually test themselves to make sure that they're reporting correctly. So it's none of it's really truly self-testing. They have their stack emissions is something that's even checked independently as well. So, right, but at the end of the day, the numbers have been dramatically decreased, but people would say, and I don't disagree, that anybody that's releasing cancer emissions of any amount is not acceptable. So they used to release 1,000 pounds, and now it's 25 or 30 pounds. So it's drastically different, but I mean, for people that believe or actually did receive cancer as a result of that, then that's just not an acceptable amount, no matter how you cut it. So.
I'm just curious, because I haven't followed it very closely lately. How often do they test? Like, how often is it tested on a yearly basis? Like, just
So Montrose gives it quarterly, provides us with testing, and then we publish that actually quarterly as well through the village to say what the results are. And then the license Advantage has is that they have to have less than 110 pounds per year is the license. And in the last several years, they've been 30, 40 pounds. They've been significantly below that. Yeah, you're welcome. So any questions, or I don't want to take up too much of your
Mayor,
time?
we thank you for being here, and I'd like to personally thank you for the SRO. That was kind of a pet project of mine, and you came through. We also want to publicly thank you for your commitment, which I'm going to hold you to help us with scholarships with CLC and elsewhere. Does the board have any questions of the mayor? We don't get this chance very often.
I don't have a question, but I also want to, I didn't come forward and thank you for your comments. We came to do our presentation on the referendum, and you said right there that you were in favor of it because businesses
Yes, you did.
weren't coming to the village because of it. And that was a huge, huge thing, because mayors don't normally do that for schools. And I personally appreciated it, and I think everybody that was on the board at the time, and Beth, who ran the committee.
And Beth.
Also, I'm sure
The entire,
appreciated it. Yeah. She was the committee.
community.
With
No, I
Susan.
was not. The
Susan was
entire
there.
community group was appreciative,
Well,
which
I'll have to say,
represented
yeah, right.
hundreds of people, so
Yeah.
thank you.
If not for Beth and Susan, I would not have escaped without saying something, just
That's
to let you
probably
know.
true, however.
It wasn't the fact that.
I'm a wise man, John. I couldn't stand up with under two ladies'
you didn't
pressure,
take
so
the
they gave it
bumper
to me.
So
That's true.
I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I tried that night.
I was 98% in, I guess, so. But you know, at the end of the day, it wasn't a hard decision to make because I really believed in my heart that was the right thing to do.
Well, you also met with Mike Engel. I remember that. You did your due diligence, and you did go over the financials, and you appreciated what the concern was. So thank you for taking the time to do the homework and actually evaluating the entire.
Thanks, yes.
Well, we're all putting our pet peeves in. I'm tired of semis on Dilly's Road.
Then you can go to a village meeting. How does that?
I'll come to the.
No, I'd rather be here. I'll come here and talk to you about that, right?
Okay, well, as long as we have you, and I'm very curious about this in just 30 seconds, what's happening northeast corner of Almond and Grand?
Almond and Grand.
Look, the whole field has been.
Oh, right, so that's, half of that is Advocate, Condell is going, or Advocate, what is their other?
Advocate Aurora.
Aurora, correct, is building a facility, will build a facility there, but probably not for a year or two. So
it's
they
not
have,
gonna-
they have
not-
half the site.
Not going to be mattress factories and. bigger
No,
places?
so, and there's Buena Beef has a permit, and they'll be coming out of the ground, so Buena Beef and Rainbow
Rainbow Cone.
Cone, okay. So they're committed. And we have there's a couple lots that have been, Starbucks has been in and out, actually, so we're hard to tell if they're in or out. They're gonna come across the street and get a drive-through there, and that's been questionable, and actually a bank is looking at that location as well. So it's 11 acres, there'll be probably 4 uses, so, but the for sure commitment is Advocate is gonna for sure go there, and then the Buena Beef has their building permit, so they're moving ahead.
Thank you for being here. Any other questions?
Yeah,
Beth?
just as we were thinking, we talked about scholarships, and you talked about some bright young individuals being involved over there. We were talking about internships coming up, and I just wonder if that's something we might need to pursue, if it hasn't already.
The mayor's already actually
Forget it.
initiated contact with me about that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have smarter people
Thanks.
around me, I don't have to worry. so.
That's the way I feel
Thank
too.
you.
I feel that way too.
Thanks for being here.
Oh,
Appreciate
thanks
it.
for
Thank
having
you,
me, I
Mayor Hood.
appreciate it. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Okay, we kick back to the superintendent's report. Danny, anything you want to talk about there before we move on?
No, thank you, everybody, for being understanding with my tardiness to the meeting.
Problem.
Okay. For the consent agenda, I move to approve the consent agenda items as presented, which includes personnel recommendations per Exhibit A, numbers 33 through 37 as posted, and Exhibit B, athletics activities and volunteers, numbers B9 through B10 as posted, and 2024-2025 volunteers, the payment of bills dated October 15th, 2024, the amount of $5,590,101.45, executive session minutes and regular meeting minutes of September 24th, 2024, the second reading and approval of district board policies and exhibits as presented, the agreements regarding the receipt of developer subdivision contributions and indemnification in the event of a private agreement, and the intergovernmental agreement between Exceptional Learners Collaborative, ELC, and Warren Township High School District 121 for students 2025 through 2028. And I make the motion. Roll call, please.
Motion by Carlson and second by Pope. Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
5 yes, motion carries.
Thank you very much. Discussion items, presentation of 2024 financial audit.
Evening. So every year, our district is required to have an audit of our financial records. First of all, I'd like to thank our business office team who pulls all the documents together for our auditors. And I'd like to recognize Roxanne Hopkins, who is here tonight. She is our accounting manager, and she is instrumental in doing the from the beginning of the audit all the way to the end, coordinating, answering questions, making sure that the audit is moving along. And tonight we have Mr. Nick Cavalieri. He's principal at Baker Tilly, and he's going to go over some of the items in the audit.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight. Everyone should have two books in front of them. I'm going to go over one of the booklets, and I'm going to ask you to take this book and just turn it to page 17 and 18 and leave it open on the desk. And then I'm just going to talk. And then if you have a question or anything, just please, by all means, interject or wait till the end, whatever's easiest for you. So the district is required to have an annual audit. I'm an independent auditor. I'm with Baker Tilly. We perform an audit over the district's financial statements and also conduct what you call a single audit, which is a federal compliance audit over your use of federal award dollars. The type of audit report that we've rendered is an unmodified audit opinion. An unmodified audit opinion is the highest level of assurance that you can receive from the external auditor that after performing all of our tests and our audit procedures, that the amounts represented in your financial statements are materially accurate. So that's what you want to hear when the auditor comes, a clean audit opinion, essentially. One of the things that we do perform an audit over is your use of federal award dollars, and the program that we audited was the Education Stabilization Fund, or the ESSER funding, which is a pandemic aid level of funding. Our audit procedures rendered no compliance findings and no internal control matters, so a clean audit over the use of federal award dollars. So you report on what they call the modified cash basis of reporting. The modified cash basis of reporting essentially recognizes receipts if you receive them, so revenues are receipts, and expenditures are disbursements, so when you cut a check. So it's important to understand in your financial statements, things that are owed to you, receivables are not recognized, in addition to anything you owe anybody at the end of the year isn't recognized. So it's really pure cash basis, money in, money out. Page 17 and 18 is the income statement for all of your funds. If you've got 5 minutes to look through a set of financial statements, I always recommend taking a look at this. What you'll see is the general fund, operations maintenance fund, transportation, and municipal retirement fund on the left page. Your general fund consists of your ed, working cash, and your tort immunity accounts, okay? There's actually a schedule that's in this report that breaks out your general fund and shows you how it's all made up of. I'm not going to have you turn there, but it is on page 72. So that fund, the general fund, is required to have those three sub-funds consolidated within it. just for informational purposes, your ed fund makes up about $25.3 million of that fund balance. Your tort fund makes up about $1 million of that fund balance. And your working cash fund makes up about $22.3 million. So when you look at the very bottom, you see fund balance end of the year, $48.6 million. That's not just your ed fund. That's predominantly your ed and your working cash fund. About $25 million of it is your ed fund. What you can see is about 3/4 of the way from the bottom is a line that says excess deficiency of revenues over expenditures. You'll see that the general fund generated about $14.7 million of additional receipts over expenditures. The operations and maintenance fund generated about $5.3 million. I'm not going to read every one of these lines to you, but I point out those two lines very importantly to you because this is the effect of your referendum starting to be fully recognized in your financial statements. So these surpluses did not necessarily exist several years ago, and they're only there because of the referendum that was out there. You do have a transfer that was moved out of the operations and maintenance fund of $4 million that was board approved. Those dollars were moved over to your capital projects fund. It was board action, all approved. Essentially, you're moving money over to capital plan and then spend those dollars down. So ultimately, long and short of it is the district's financial position is significantly improved from prior years and is a direct result of the property tax referendum. So I don't really have much more to add, but I am here for you if you have any questions.
Questions from the board?
It's all good. We appreciate your hard work, because I know there's a lot of work that goes into these, and since you didn't find anything bad, we don't usually have much to say.
It's a good day.
And the
Sometimes
fact-
it's nice to talk about the good, though, too, and it is important. You know, I started working with the district a few years back, and I was here before the referendum, you know, and there was loans from the working cash fund to the ed fund, and, you know, there were some difficult times, and it's nice to see the opposite for you.
Question, tort, is that self-insurance? What?
So the tort fund is really for the most part of like risk management. So a lot of school districts will keep it pretty isolated to like insurance bills and things like that. Other school districts use more of the tort fund and for like your risk management plan. But I think for you, it's predominantly your insurance bills and things of that nature.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from anybody? Okay, thank you for being here.
All right, thank you. Have a good evening.
Yep.
We're going to hear about the IASB delegate resolutions.
I don't specifically have anything to discuss, but this is an opportunity for the board to discuss the resolutions. Right now, I probably would recommend that that we follow the recommendations of the committee that are in the attached publication. But I'm still looking through them, and if there's any that the board wants to discuss, we could do that. We'll bring this back in November to just make sure everybody's on the same page. It's okay if we don't follow the committee recommendations. I did meet with the Muslim Student Association this month to talk about some other items not related to anything on this report. They mentioned to me that in a previous year, it might have been this last year, the state testing date for high schoolers fell on or close to one of their religious holidays, which was a tough experience for them. And it just happened to be right around the time that we got this report. And so I thought there's a possibility that maybe we could work with MSA on a resolution to make that a consideration in future years when state testing dates are determined. But that's a future conversation and topic. Yeah. If there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them, or if the board wants to discuss anything right now, they can do that.
I thought they were interesting this year. I like the
Yeah.
healthcare coverage.
Mm-hmm.
As a state employee outside of this world, it makes all the sense. I was
Absolutely.
very impressed with that one, actually. Good for them for putting that through.
Other questions, comments?
Yeah, I was wondering if you could give some broader context to the EBF authorized charter school funding, because I talked to someone from the Woodland School Board, you know, of course, asked that we give it our attention. And but is that, do you know, Danny, kind of a broad problem that what's charter schools are under their, explain it.
Yeah, my understanding is, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that a school district receives an EBF, receives a dollar amount from the state that's based on the evidence-based funding formula. But what they're required to then allocate to the charter schools is just a per pupil allocation. And so, dependent upon how many students that attend the charter school, that may
What
bring
their
in
needs are,
more
correct.
or less based on that funding model. That could mean that the school district holds on to more money, or it could mean that the school district is dispersing more money to the charter school. It's not, I don't think the allocation recognizes what the evidence-based funding formula inherently is trying to recognize.
That's been a spirited discussion with Woodland and for years. Is this taking a position or suggesting something, or?
Yeah, I think they've been recommending things for a handful of years, and I don't think they've ever gotten something that the committee gave the thumbs up. This is the first time they're getting something the committee thumbs up. Since EBF came out, there are other organizations that have slowly moved to the evidence-based funding formula. Specifically, I think the one that's most applicable to us is the Perkins Grant and career education funding. For us, that means Tech Campus. The funding, it means other things for us internally, but a lot of that money goes towards Tech Campus. That funding is in the process just now of moving towards this model, the EBF model. So things are over time still lagging and catching up with that. And probably, I'm guessing the committee saw this as like, oh yeah, that's probably something we should talk about too.
Want their payments to the charter school to mirror their increases and decreases in evidence-based funding, basically. That's the crux of it,
Correct.
which only seems logical.
Yes, it does.
And fair.
Yes.
And it doesn't know?
No,
Okay.
it's per pupil. Also, the dual language proposal would affect us, correct? Would that allow us to, that would allow us to benefit as a dual language program for our ESL group, right? Is that the way I'm reading that, or am I?
Yeah, most of, I don't know this for sure, but I'm guessing that a lot of our students that receive the state seal of biliteracy aren't necessarily coming to us as English language learners. They are, I think this is probably, yeah, maybe say your question for me again.
The way I'm reading it, it seemed like they're affirming,
If we have, Chris, do we have like 40 or 50 students that were, got the state seal of biliteracy last year?
Yeah, we're usually around 40, between 40 and 60 students receiving the state seal of biliteracy. Most of those are students that came through our world language program, are not necessarily English learners. But, I mean, Dr. Moran is trying to kind of come the back way around that. So a lot of those kids are able to demonstrate their native language proficiency, but using other ways to get them to demonstrate English language proficiency. So that's one of the things that we're trying to be better. But usually 40 to 50-ish students, and most of those are not designated as English learners.
And this is just saying, hey, if you get that, you don't necessarily have to have taken
Spanish.
the
Yeah.
courses in high school.
that's why I was trying to understand, like, would that apply to some of those students? So I don't know.
For those 40 or 50 students, it could apply. Most likely, they've taken 3 or 4 years of
Okay,
the language.
fair enough.
They have to if this passes.
Correct, they wouldn't have to.
I think it's an appropriate amount of flexibility. If you speak
Yeah.
something other than English at home and you learn English at school,
Your dual language.
yeah, you're doing, you shouldn't have to like take a third language to meet that credit.
I thought there was, I mean, compared to last year,
Like these resolutions.
yeah, I might have actually volunteered to, no, I'm just-
Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm
Make a motion, John.
I heard that. I have witnesses.
But
I'm
I
go-
also,
I'm going.
just for fun of discussion, I thought it was interesting that they declined the use of the background check. There's quite a few face law, the criminal background check and the use of, what do you guys call that? It sounds like something we use in healthcare. Tony, you know the word.
CANTS system?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
you
not
and I
our
have
system, that's DCFS, right?
Right.
I believe.
That was in here last year. They
It
tried
was.
that last year.
That's
They
correct.
turned
I
it
mean,
down.
there was a desire by school districts to use an existing structure to do background checks, and there, a lot of people in HR across school districts in the state feel like there's no reason why CANTS couldn't be a possibility, rather than every school using a
Different.
patchwork of
Yeah.
different systems.
Well, and
So it
like-
did rear its head again, yeah.
And, you know, like in healthcare, we have a perpetual background check in the FIAP, and it'll alert a entity if someone is assigned to work for that entity, if they, are convicted of a felony in real time. And so that's what I don't understand, why we can't progress beyond even the discussion of the CAN system and move to the FIAP like we do in healthcare.
Yeah,
Like
it didn't
just-
have to be CANTS in particular. It was,
Anything.
It was just a example of
Yeah.
a state system that could be used to
I
solve
don't
an
understand
issue.
the resistance.
I don't understand either.
Because I was reading their denial, and it just didn't seem, I mean, it was pretty,
Well, this is where whoever sits in on that webinar, they'll explain the reason why the committee recommended to deny it. Okay, there's a webinar where they will explain why that is. My guess is it's rooted in CANTS, because there were some pieces of face law that CANTS wouldn't address, but it would address most of the concern.
yeah, just reading, I mean,
But-
the committee determined that EHRs are burdensome and that a statewide centralized solution is needed, however, did not support CANTS as the appropriate substitute.
Because they did endorse a resolution that would create a statewide database.
Yeah.
So it seems
Why
like they've
wouldn't you use
opted
an
for that
existing?
approach.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
It's very strange.
And to go back to the charter school, there's always more, I'm sure, to the story, having been on Woodland's board when the whole charter school thing was going down. The state authorized charter school, of which Woodland is forced to pay per pupil. My guess, I know no information, that was many, many years ago, but when I read this and read between the lines, right now Woodland, I believe, has to send a per pupil dollar amount to Prairie Crossing Charter School, which Woodland's demographics, much like ours, have gone a certain direction, thus increasing their EBF dollar amount. But by forcing a charter school, a state authorized charter school like Prairie Crossing, to also follow that, it's been well known for a lot of years that the demographics of Prairie Crossing do not mimic Woodland or Fremont, not even close. So it would make sure that the dollars go, the EBF dollars go toward who they're intended to go. That is my take, having some knowledge in this space, albeit not recent knowledge. I believe that's what's going on.
Includes special needs, right? So
Correct.
it's not just
Demographics of Prairie
demographics
Crossing,
includes-
if you were to look at it very closely, there's been a hard fight with Woodland to try to change that or remove the charter from it because of long-standing issues of not educating, it's a public charter, not educating all public. There's a long story there that continues to this day.
I've heard parts of it.
Yep.
Interesting discussion.
Yeah.
I'll be there.
Okay, anything else on ISB? All right, moving on to action items. I move to approve the intergovernmental cooperation agreement for mutual assistance in response to crises in the public schools of Lake County, Illinois. I make the motion. There's got to be some discussion or topic on, can we hear a little about this?
Yeah, we had this up for discussion last month. This is just a MOU for possible future catastrophes, allows school districts to work with each other, and uses their regional office as kind of the organizing hub. Appreciate the ROE for putting it together.
Sure.
Mutual aid in crises, now that's not on the spot sending people, that's just maybe resources later or something. I'm concerned that this is stepping on EMS and, you know, a couple other people.
In the document, it specifically says that it won't step on police, fire, emergency responders. It's not supposed to replace it, it's just.
Augments and resources?
My understanding is if there was a crisis and another district needed, let's say, social workers, psychologists, mental health professionals, or others to be sent over, this formalizes probably what is already happening if there was a call made.
Yes, I
People
think
would
so.
send people, but this just puts it into an actual agreement. Because this is already happening.
We have a motion and a second for the discussion. Roll call, please.
Motion by Carlson, second by Pope. Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
5 yes. Motion carries.
Item B is approval of the 2025-26 curriculum guide changes and new course proposals. Mr. Giocaris.
So our proposed changes this year really revolve around four specific themes: increasing access to rigorous courses, increasing dual credit opportunities for our students, strengthening our career pathways programs, and also then a little bit of looking to the future of what these proposed changes mean for us and things that we see on the horizon that we need to start considering. So under increasing access to rigorous coursework, one of the big things we've done is trying to remove barriers. So a lot of our courses in several departments started to remove prerequisites. We started that work a couple of years ago. We're continuing that work, either removing prerequisites altogether or finding different entry points for different courses. And in some cases, even just even adding a course and also saying, like, or upon instructor approval, just basically saying, like, if you want to take the course, we want you to take the course. We are going to dissolve the School Within a School program next year. School Within a School program is for students that do not have IEPs, are not designated English language learners who are reading 2 years or more below grade level. It serves about 45 students annually. We've had that program in place for about 20, 21 years, and students do improve in that program, but there's really no data that ties it to the program is School Within a School is English, reading, science, and social studies. There's really no data that ties the reading improvement to any other courses other than the reading. And with the expansion of our lunchtime supports, we feel that we want to have those students enrolled in college prep courses, support them with our lunchtime interventions, continue the reading intervention course for them, and hopefully we can help those kids grow even more. So that's what that proposed change involves. Well, we've had a successful pilot with our Earned Honors program this year, and we tried that out in one of our bands. And what Earned Honors is a student enrolls in a college prep course. They do some more rigorous coursework above and beyond just the college prep curriculum to earn honors credit for that class. So next year we'll be adding earned honors credit into anatomy and physiology, which is a junior-senior level science course, our introduction to theater course, which is offered freshmen through seniors, and our Allman Concert Choir. Allman Concert Choir being the same rationale as what we had for our second to top band this year. And then another piece, we're adding some courses to continue to provide students with choice in their areas of study. Physical science will be a new science course taught at our Eau Plaine campus. So our students will now have a choice when they come to us. They can take biology or they can take physical science, which then means during their sophomore year, they could take, if they took physical science as a freshman, they could take biology or chemistry as a sophomore. If they took biology as a freshman, they could take physical science or chemistry as a sophomore. So we're giving kids more choices in rigorous coursework in our science program. And then so biology being like physical science could be like a precursor to chemistry, more earth science, environmental. It's more kind of a survey class, earth and space science. Some people will term that, but it's more of a study of the natural phenomenon of the world with less of a focus. And in physical science, there's more of a focus on a lot of application. There's less reading, less vocabulary than in biological sciences. So it's a different type of course than biology is, but again, it's giving students choices. It's not less rigorous, it's just a different pathway through the sciences. Honores Conversación y Cultura is a senior level course, and what this is it provides students with a choice. So we have students that are English language learners that take AP Spanish language as juniors, and this then gives them a choice their senior year. If they want to take AP Spanish literature, they can do that, or they can take this course, which is really a culture and conversation, like a culture communications class. And also it's available to any student that's taken Honor Spanish 4 as a junior. If they don't want to take AP Spanish language, they can take this class. It's at an honors level, and it hopefully encourages more students to stay in our world language program through their senior year. One other course that provides some students with some additional choice, I apologize, I left out the slide, is improv. Our theater program is adding an improv class at both campuses. They surveyed students, and when students saw like improvisation skills are a great opportunity for kids to learn for public speaking and just being able to, if they're interested in that, or just being able to interact with people in the world, improv is a great skill. So they're hopeful that that will be a course that students find to be popular.
I hope they put on a Second City or equivalent.
Yes.
They do Giggles and Bits.
Giggles and Bits is very popular
Is that
here,
going to be
yes.
incorporated?
It's not necessarily part of the class, but it's that sort of idea.
They do an improv kind of a night.
So we're hopeful that is a popular option for students. Increasing dual credit. This one I'm really excited about this slide. We've spent a lot of time and effort partnering with CLC, working with our lead teachers, working with our teachers, learning more as an organization, helping our lead teachers and principals learn more about what dual credit is, how do we offer it, how do we get people credentialed, and we've been working hard to continually expand that, and it's taken a lot of work. So you can see back in the 2018-2019 school year, we had one dual credit class here in the Almond Science Department, and over time, up last year, we approved one more additional one in our Project Lead the Way curriculum, and this year we're doubling from 7 to 14. And when we double, those are not just courses for high flyers. Those are courses that are accessible for all students. Industrial technology, we'll talk a little bit more in a second, but they are bringing in several dual credit courses. They're bringing in 3. Mathematics is actually adding 2. One mathematics course is our Honors Calc 3 topics, which is always kind of a disconnect for us because we have some really smart juniors that take AP Calculus BC as a junior, and then we didn't have a college level course for them as a senior. We're able to offer that next year. But then the second one is a CTE math class for our kids, and it actually solves a big problem for us because we have a transitional math class that is a year-long class for seniors that if they take that class, pass it with a C or better, they can enroll in a credit-bearing class at CLC, but that means they have to be here for their entire senior year. And we do have some kids that are second semester exempt or early grads that want to go on to other things the second semester of their senior year. Well, the second dual credit math class is a semester-long math class, and it is a dual credit math class. So if they leave us and enroll in CTE programs at the College of Lake County, they would receive their math credit for that CTE program. If they enrolled in a regular degree-seeking program, it serves as an elective credit, but it's because it's very accessible, there's no prereqs to it, it's just a great opportunity for our students.
Just as a reminder, CTE is Career and Technical Education.
Thank you, Danny.
No acronyms allowed in here.
Sorry. Business is adding to our career planning course, is adding a dual credit component to that. And then theater is adding to our theater design and technology class. They're adding they're aligning with CLC for a dual credit course there as well.
The mayor was in here talking about what an impact his high school career had here. I was in 4 plays and 4 musicals, some of the best times in my life. And it really, I won't say it shaped me, you could say warped me, Susan, but whatever. Beth, I was going to say warped me.
Debatable.
No, but it makes a heck of an impression. It affects your life, and I'm very happy to see an emphasis on that.
Well, I'll add to that, as I was looking through this, I was really happy to see that part of it because friends that I have in the show business industry, I guess I'll say, who have done lighting for the Super Bowls and lighting for Oprah and lighting for the Olympics. They didn't have like even training in that. It was on the job, very, nuts and bolts, working, finding a niche in someone's whatever. And like, this is kind of exciting because there is a lot of opportunity out there to have some really high paying, really high-end jobs that really don't go through a traditional college coursework. And that was kind of fun to see because I thought about some of those friends. I never went to college, and this is what I'm doing. And how'd you get into it? Well, I fell through this crack, and I liked it, and I kept going. So it's encouraging. It's kind of fun to see it. So.
We just,
Many additional paths as we can, and this is a good one.
Yeah,
Well,
but
we
also
just-
the variety,
Yeah.
I think, is kind of nice. So.
we just visited CLC. Our theater teacher, Mr. Miller, and myself went over to CLC to learn about what they're
that
doing in their
guy.
theater program. And we also learned about their live entertainment production program, which is a new certificate that they're offering. So a lot of the changes and work that we're doing around theater, we're trying to set kids up to look and feed into that program. We're going to continue to work at it, but one of the things that Mr. Miller and I talked about around the theater arts was really trying to find different ways to encourage kids to want to take those classes. So we're creating attractive opportunities based on student interest across the board.
Can I just say one
Yep.
more thing about that? Having a son that took an optional AP and or dual credit class his senior year, it was interesting to see the dynamic between having to pay for the AP test and having to pass the AP test versus passing the course and already receiving a credit. And that gives so many more kids an option that don't want to hand over money or the stress of test taking. Even though you have that in your class, that actual test is very stressful, as you know, on a lot of those kids that don't test well, like some people I know. And so this is really encouraging because it offers a lot of our students who may not choose to do an AP system very well. I'm super excited about this and the variety. I mean, this is knocking out of the park, really. So thank you for all the work on this. Thank everyone for all the work on this. It's really nice to see.
So then our next theme would be strengthening our career pathways. So in our industrial technology department, really did a lot of work, especially over the last couple of years. Last year in particular, doing site visits, meeting with industry professionals, really doing an audit of what their courses are and how are they aligned to careers for students. And they reorganized a lot of things and basically restructured into 5 specific pathways: an architecture pathway, fabrication, multimedia, engineering, and then their project lead the way engineering pathway. And what they did was they basically created sequences of courses and that had capstones. And the architecture one brings in an additional project lead the way course as a capstone, so civil engineering and architecture. Project lead the way course is the capstone there. There's some independent studies in the fabrication pathway. The multimedia is some graphic design, some social media production, logo and branding. So a lot of things that even we were talking about with the mayor and we've done as a school, we're teaching our students how to do that in our programs. The engineering pathway actually shortened. So it becomes an engineering 1, which is a semester class. Then kids can choose between 2 engineering 2 courses, one based on robotics or one looking at more manufacturing. And then if they still like that, then the 3rd class actually feeds back into the Project Lead the Way sequence. So there's multiple on-ramps to Project Lead the Way. A student doesn't need to come here as a freshman and say, I want to be an engineer at 14 years old to access those courses. They can access it after the freshman year. They can access it after their sophomore year. So that's a really great improvement. And then we are adding dual credit in industrial technology in graphic design technology will now be dual credit. Our digital video production will be dual credit, and graphic printing 2 will be dual credit. Additionally, in this, we are also taking, since with our enrollment declining, we have some additional space here at the Alma campus. There's a computer lab that's available that we're going to repurpose to offer some more industrial technology courses like the logo branding, the social media, digital video production too, which would be a new course, will be able to take place here at the Alma campus. So now, as students have more space in their schedules, they can access these courses that previously were only housed over at Eau Plaine. So a lot of credit to the industrial technology program. Mr. Schumann's their lead teacher, who did a phenomenal job leading their department through those conversations, some difficult conversations about courses and offerings and curriculum and what's in the best interest of our students. The next piece to help strengthen our Career Pathways program is reimagining our internship courses. So there's always been these 2 internship courses that have been in our curriculum guide, and I worked with Mrs. Zabin to talk about what could those look like in practice. And it boils down to how can we offer some internal internships. So there's lots of different things that happen here at Warren every day, and how can kids be involved in those things as interns. But also kids do things outside of school. So how can we give kids credit for working a job or doing an internship outside of the school? So we reimagined those 2 internships. We're trying to start very small, so we probably won't have a lot of kids in those. We're not gonna be running multiple sections of those because we wanna make sure we have a small group that we know we can be successful with, learn from those experiences, and then continue to grow the program. But even with our external internship being, we're saying about 5 hours a week of coursework. So for the career pathway endorsement for the state, as we continue to build those programs out, that requires 60 hours of career intensive experience. So even in an 18-week semester at 5 hours a week will far exceed the 60 hours required by the state for that endorsement. So we're embedding in their courses, in their programs, the opportunities they need to earn that endorsement.
Before you move on, we used to have internships at the county. We'd have them at the health department, at the Department of Transportation. Do you reach out to other agencies, particularly government or industry or Abbott or anybody else? How do you get your internships?
So right now, the way this will primarily work is students will have to find their own internships. Danny and I are looking for some partners in the community for some volunteer opportunities that are kind of on scale, so we have some options for some students.
United Way, I'll find you 3 or 4 of them.
That would be, that would be fantastic. But we don't have the career person, the internship finder person to do all that. So we are limited with what we can do in this. So we're trying to find some options for kids. So if you want to intern externally, if you have a job, that's fantastic. If we can help you find an internship, that's great. But we do want to have some volunteer opportunities. We spoke with the Boys and Girls Club a week or so ago about what we could do with them to partner with them
I'm sure
for
some
some
of us here
opportunities as
could
well.
help you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right now, the real issue is that there are lots of people that have said, hey, I would love to help with internships. The mayor is an example of one. Gurney 56 with the Boys and Girls Club is one. We don't have a mechanism to accept that, organize it, construct it, meet with the students, help us internally support them, visit the site, be a contact with the intern
Could it be less
supervisor.
official than that? Could it be unofficial?
No, you need a lot of support to wrap around. So Chris and I have met with Gurney 56 and Boys and Girls Club. We've probably met maybe for 4 hours so far between the 2 of us with them, just to get the concept of a 2-student internship running for next year.
Because I'm looking at Introduction to Health Sciences, and you've got a Board of Health or health department with
But it's not just making the contact.
800 employees.
It's not just saying, hey, do you want an internship? There's a lot of work that goes into that.
The classes, the student, the mechanisms internally here. It's a daily operation, as opposed to, you and I could set them up with somebody to connect for an internship, but someone has to piece that together for the student internally here, so that they can work that system within the system. Because the contacts are something, yes, we could help with, but you're not gonna sit down with the administration and design the program internally so that the grading, they need someone to do that.
I guess I'm looking for something less official than that, but okay, that's not practical.
Well,
Yeah, I just don't
but
have
it's
a
the
way
nuts and
to.
bolts.
Yeah, I need to be able to give the students some type of structure as opposed to just, hey, go to this company 3 times a week and tell them you're ready to work. The company won't know what to do with them
Okay, not to get into it, but I mean, with the health department, they have people following people all over the place, you know, and
But
it's
they need a
structured.
coursework to
And
follow.
I
They
know,
need-
but, and they follow a particular individual, and some of them turn into nurses or PAs or whatever it is because of it. But, you know, this is something I know a little about from the opposite side. Know nothing about it from here, so bear with me.
Sure.
I think there's a difference between, like, what you described as job shadowing, which we
Yeah,
have
yeah, yeah.
going on.
Yeah.
Versus an internship where they have to earn
Okay.
their credit for
I'm just
it.
trying to put things
You know,
together,
that's,
but I hear
that's
you.
kind of the difference.
Okay.
And I think it's also important to note here too, is we're using the term, for this course, we're using the term internship very broadly. Like there's like, if you are working a job you're working a job at Home Depot, like that would be acceptable for that. We want our kids to be able to work. We want our kids to be able to explore careers. That can manifest a number of different ways. But we do need to make sure that we are setting up the structures, making sure that our students are successful, but that also the employers that take our kids on have positive experiences within the program.
Okay,
Accountability,
let's go
right?
the other way around. Introduction to health sciences, okay? Now, you could have a doctor, a nurse, a PA, whatever, LPN, any number of people come in. Do you do that? Could people come in and talk about their careers? We could do the other way around and have them come in here?
That, you can do that, but that doesn't count as an internship.
No, but I mean, I'm just,
Yeah, and our teachers do that. We do have people in the field come and visit classes. I know in our sports medicine class, like a physical trainer or physical therapists or athletic trainers will come in and speak to kids or doctors, and our kids go and they volunteer wherever they can. But when I was talking to Mr. Fischetti, as we were going through the development of this class, one thing that he's mentioned is it's actually getting very hard to place kids at these PT sites because there's so many of them now. There's not enough need. There's not enough things for the kids to do. And one of the other things that's happening too is we're not the only high school in Lake County that's having these conversations about creating more opportunities for students in the workplace. So we are in competition with Grays Lake, with Libertyville, with Waukegan, as these high schools are all trying to find places to put their kids.
Well, and the ironic part is healthcare is so understaffed right now that the need is so great to get these kids working in the field, but there aren't people to train them. And so I work in it, I get it.
Just
I mean,
to highlight one connector from a previous conversation tonight, that's where I think as time goes on, we have a leg up on the other high schools. We have the Gurnee area, as we heard from Mayor Hood, with all this industry here in town. And if I were a business that wanted to connect locally, I may want to have kids from the local high school and feel like I'm giving back to the community that I'm serving. So I think as you go to explore this, I think we do have somewhat of a leg up, and it might be all in the approach of we are your local high school and we want to build a connection with you. So
Absolutely.
the greater Gurnee area, we can tap
And-
into that.
And I also want to highlight the internal internship piece too, because there's a lot of things that we do internally here. So like, and the WTHS internship is the internal one. And what our model that we're looking at there is maybe they're in class a couple days a week, but then they're interning within the building a few days a week. And they could be interning into, right, athletic trainers, technology. Think about for a second the logo branding and the social media production classes I was just speaking about. I know in one of the vendors that I work with last year was talking about they were really trying to get their social media active, right? And they would love to partner with high school kids to help develop a social media strategy and to implement that. That would be something that we could do in the WTHS internship class because you can do a social media internship anywhere. So there's all kinds of opportunities.
a lot of businesses think about reaching out to the local community college. If you can market it to reach out to you, that might be a really good win, especially with Mayor Hood's support for that, so.
So yeah,
Curious, I don't know if you finished the list, but the healthcare sciences,
getting to that.
you haven't gotten there.
We haven't gotten there. We're on career aligned fine arts coursework. So I'm really excited about the music production course. So this is a conversation that some of the music teachers and myself have been having for several years, is that kids right now, like there's a lot of digital music now where kids don't necessarily know how to play an instrument, but they know how to work with loops. and sound files, and how do you produce music. So this is kind of a little bit different than like music theory. This is more like hands-on, actually producing types of music. So we're going to start this class next year as an elective in the music program, and this could develop into another dual credit opportunity for students. So we're excited to see where this goes. And theater will be offering the first fine arts dual credit course next year. Then the theater tech course will be our first dual credit offering in our fine arts program. And then introduction to health sciences under healthcare. How that course ties into our existing programming is it actually is part of our would be part of our sports medicine pathway. It comes out of our physical development department. And that would introduce students to medical terminology, some aspects of the healthcare field, get them some things that we do in sports medicine 1 would come into that course, but then that would free up more time to go into a little bit more in depth in sports medicine 1, which then feeds into our honor sports medicine 2. So it strengthens our health sciences pathway, especially as students start to take anatomy and physiology or AP biology. Our dual credit chemistry class is designed for kids that are interested in maybe going into healthcare. So there's a robust pathway there that starts to develop with 3 courses that are very closely tied to that pathway, and then some strongly related supporting science courses.
I'm hearkening back. My daughter is 50 years old now, and she was a student here, and she talked about becoming a doctor. She had no idea that meant bachelor's, 3 years medical school, 4 years, 3 years subspecialty. Not a clue. Now, she's since become an LPN and pediatric, and she's gone her way, but she didn't understand at all any of the differences in roles in healthcare. Is that addressed at all, and will it be?
Yeah, that would be addressed as part of that healthcare program, especially in our sports medicine classes, but also our post-secondary counselors. That's some of the work that they do with our students is they say, hey, I want to be a doctor. Well, they're able to talk to those kids. Well, here's what post-secondary education looks like if you want to be a doctor, or if you want to be a physician assistant, or if you want to be a CNA. Like, these are the pathways that you can go, and this is what education you would need. So we address it in the curriculum, and we address it through our student services department.
When they go to their, the counselors, the student services department, those are things like, if they have interests, they shoot them out, and they'll like guide them through those, they'll walk them through, yeah.
Other questions or comments?
Still going.
Still has more.
Thank you, sir.
No, he still has more.
Oh, you're going to go on?
Oh, we've got, there's a lot of good stuff here.
He was done talking, so
He's
go down.
He's good. Yeah, I
was
can,
done.
if you guys, we can.
Okay.
But I wanted to talk a little bit about this. So I spoke a lot about how we're strengthening career pathways, but I did want to introduce the concept of our career pathway framework. So we are really establishing 6 career clusters, which are aligned to the Illinois State career pathway endorsement areas. So arts and communications, finance, health sciences, human public services, IT, and manufacturing, and like the trades. Within each of those clusters, we are looking to build multiple pathways per cluster. And within each of those pathways, we need to have career-aligned courses, related clubs and activities. We're working on building out dual credit that's available to us, and making sure that our students coming through those pathways are earning certifications. Those are the building blocks that we need to have outside of even the pathway endorsements in order for us to have a viable pathway in our framework. That's what we need to have, is those 4 things within each cluster. So that's our framework that Danny and I have worked on. That's the work that I'm doing with our lead teachers as we build out our career pathway program for our district. So with that, as we look through that lens, one of the things that I've been working on is building out a career guide. So last year we were able to launch a very, very, very simple career pathway website where basically said, if you like these types of jobs, you could think about courses in these departments. We're taking the next step with that this year. We're partnering with a group called Career Tech Media to develop a guide that provides families with some really clear explanations of career pathways and courses, gives them ideas of what education you need to earn like the average salary, what types of job opportunities are there in these fields. It's going to be available digitally on our website once it's done, and will be available in print by the time we hit course selection. Right now I'm in the draft process. I'm working with our lead teachers, post-secondary counselors to finalize a lot of that content. I did link in here from Bremen High School. There is the Bremen High School has a sample of this. It's one that we're kind of modeling off of. So if you search Bremen High School Career Guide, it'll pop up and you can flip through it. But I did want to show you a couple screenshots. So this would be, this is out of Bremen's guide. That we will have the same type of page. And what this is like a real simple career self-assessment, right? Like, are you check off the things that describe you and then kind of count them up. And, you know, if you're interested in this, then you can look at these types of career pathways. So it's a thing that kids can do with their parents to get an idea of like, hey, what pathways might be of interest to you. And this is a sample of what the pages will look like. So in each pathway, you would have this page on the left-hand side talking about what it is, what types of jobs, what are some personal traits that is this for me? Like, well, it's for you if you like these types of things. And what are the types of things that I would do in this field? And then on the right is using Illinois Labor Department statistics on education, median salary, job growth, estimated number of job openings over the next several years. And then it lays out what courses we offer that are aligned to this pathway, what are the related clubs or activities, dual credit available, and certifications that we offer in that pathway. And then as over time, we would continue to build out those dual credit courses, continue to build out certifications, and if there's other clubs that pop up, we would make sure we would be adding those in as well. But we would have this type of a page for all of the pathways that we would identify. So then just kind of the last thing is looking to the future, some things that are on the horizon that we just need to start thinking about. One is we need to start taking a look at like a 9th grade success seminar. So CLC has this for kids that come in. They have a CLC 101 or CLC 120, which is basically how are you successful at College of Lake County, right? A lot of schools are starting to build these. We think it'd be a great idea for us to build a 9th grade success seminar that as an elective that kids could choose to take, where, you know, here's the skills that you could, you know, would help you be successful here at Warren. This is not an easy lift. At the freshman level, there's not a lot of room in schedules. There's not a lot of space for kids to select that. So we have to think about how do we do course selection, who teaches it, how does this fit into the bigger picture of everything. But we are considering working on a pilot that we could possibly put forward for the 2025 summer school, where we could run that next summer with incoming freshmen. We do some similar, some small things with some at-risk students, but thinking about this more as a global, like this is for anyone type success seminar next summer for elective credit.
How many elective credit, there was another question I had. How many weeks were you thinking?
We haven't gotten that far into it yet, but you can run a course like that. You can run it 6 weeks for 2.5 hours a day, or you could run it for 3 weeks at 5 hours a day. So right now, the Achieve seminar that we run for 3 weeks in the first semester for 5 hours a day. But we haven't talked about what we think the best delivery model for that is.
Target feeder school populations, or?
For this one, we would not. We would.
Okay.
I think right now we would just try to promote as much as we could with the feeder schools, and hopefully encourage as many kids as possible that we could handle. Because we do have programs that we run, like we have some EL summer school where we target our multilingual learners, or we have Achieve where we work with the feeder schools to identify some students that might struggle when they get here. We want to make sure that we get them some work in English, math, reading, and some social emotional learning. Some other things there's some changes coming in state requirements that we need to be aware of, and as we continue to make decisions, we need to be considering. The career pathway endorsement is going to continue to increase. So right now for the class of 2027, we need to establish one career pathway endorsement. That's going to go up for the class of 2029, and then again the class of 2031. So those are our requirements are going to continue to increase there. And additionally, the incoming class in the year of the class that are freshmen during the 28-29 school year, they will be required to have 2 years of a world language, which is basically saying you need to have 2 more credits in high school to graduate. So that's a big change as well. So those are 2 major things coming from the state that we need to over the next year and start to plan and account for. And I think the third bullet point really kind of came up in our discussion earlier around internships. It's just the staffing that's required to identify and support the growing need and those supporting and expanding those internship opportunities, because that is a heavy lift. There is a lot of work that has to be done internally with our students, externally with the employers, and then making sure that we have continuity and sustainability in those programs.
Clarify, you say future internship opportunities. Is this the same position in effect as the career path position we have talked about in the past? Is that one and the same? Okay.
Yeah, yes.
That's, I just wanted to clarify. Okay.
And that is all I had. Is there any, what questions do you have?
Question. On the dual credit, we've talked about this in the past about credentialing for teachers.
Yep.
What is the limiting factor for increasing the dual credit opportunities right now? Is it teacher credentialing? Is it working with CLC to identify stuff? Is it all the above, I guess? But
CLC's been a fantastic partner.
great.
They've been an amazing partner. So there's two different areas of dual credit. One is called transfer credits. So that's like anything outside of industrial tech or business. In those areas, you have to have a master's degree with 18 credit hours, graduate credit hours in the discipline. So if I have my master's in education, that's my curriculum instruction master's, that's my master's degree. But if I want to teach dual credit mathematics, I now need to have 18 graduate credit hours in mathematics. So 18 hours towards a master's in mathematics. So that's the barrier there. That's not a CLC rule, that's a Higher Learning Commission rule. So that's the barrier there. But we've developed a process over the years for evaluating where our teachers are at. There is a mechanism in place that once a teacher has 9 credit hours in the discipline, they can start a professional development plan and start teaching, but then they have a couple more years to finish those classes. There's some concern that like the law that allows that is sunsetting on December 31st. So we're hopeful that that gets renewed. It's kind of out of our hands at this point. So that's the barrier around the transfer credits. In the CTE area, it's much easier to get teachers credentialed. Where we run into there is sometimes it's alignment of programs, but also what seems to be like,
CLC, or is that with?
yeah, it's all with CLC.
It is, that's also CLC.
Yes, and so like what happens is they have some programs and we got to figure how does that fit in with what we have, and then the trick sometimes is like our digital video production is going to be dual credit, our first course in our sequence, but our digital video 2 is not going to be dual credit because CLC is not making their entire course catalog dual credit. Right, so some of those courses that we would teach are upper level, those are also courses that CLC treats as upper level that they do not want to have as dual credit. They want to make sure kids are taking those courses with them. So sometimes it's just a matter of working through that. But we have a process, so starting in November, I sit down with our teachers and lead teachers and I start working through like what are your interests for dual credit? What are some things that you've looked at? Because they're looking at the curriculum guides from CLC, they're looking at their courses, and then I reach out to CLC and we start that conversation. So usually by March, we have a pretty good idea of where we're going with dual credit, and then we're analyzing transcripts and starting to stand things up. So
Comfortable with the pace right now? Like you've doubled, right? So
yeah, I'm comfortable with the pace. We have a good plan because I'm also, when you launch new dual credit, there's a lot of work that goes with that. So next year we might not have a whole bunch more dual credit, but we'll be continuing to get better at what we have. Probably have a couple more. But the year that we had this year, we spent 2 years lining up all of this.
Comment I want to make, it's going to echo what I said during the curriculum committee last week. Susan was there, she heard my comments as well. But for the purposes of the board meeting and just being, in an open venue like this, I was struck by the lead teachers who were excited about some of the changes they made to their respective departments. I was struck by, and I know from going to open houses, curriculum nights, we have teachers that have been here easily over 20 years, proud of it, very experienced and well respected. It's very easy in teaching that long to get stuck in the ways that have always been, and it's worked for this long and we produce great kids. Why should I change? And I loved the reflection of adjusting the courses, the titles of the courses, to make them either relevant, attractive to kids, or to adjust to the trends in the various fields, which that openness and willingness to do so was so appreciated. And it just really kind of made me reflect and be extremely happy about what took place. And I know there's leadership that helps guide those conversations, so thank you. but mainly thanks to our faculty and staff who were reflective and made adjustments and didn't even think twice in what was for the benefit of our kids. So I just thought it was all around good work this year. The stuff that gets, I think, us very jazzed up and excited, because this is what matters. We're an educational institution, so rather than audits, roofs, this is the stuff. You know, this is the important stuff. So it was all good work is what I'm trying to say, so thank you.
Second that.
Audits
Yeah,
are very important
exciting.
too,
Yeah.
but yes. Yeah, I really appreciate all the flexibility that's built into this, like new pathways into classes and earned honors. I think that's really good for students, and it's a student-centered way of thinking, right? What do the kids want to do and need to do? I would love to see in a year or two whatever kind of data is available that shows us like how are these flexibility options paying off? Who's being served by them? What students are making use of them? What students are not making use of them? I would be interested to see that as we get into it. Thank you.
And along those lines, for instance, like Project Lead the Way that you discussed. So I remember freshman year, it was a choice between, does Donovan, my son, do band for 4 years or Project Lead the Way possibly for 4 years? But he couldn't do both. And so, if I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm mistaken, but I remember.
Probably true.
I felt like that. And so, you know, what I'm hearing now is, you know, maybe halfway through his experience here, he can switch over, or there's a possibility where he can, you know, segue a little bit differently, where, like you said, at age 13, what are we deciding, you know, to do? This is a time to experiment, and that is, I guess, it's bringing up kind of my core concern with these career pathways, is that once you're on a pathway, if you don't like it, how do you get off of that pathway and adjust? He talked about engineering freshman year. He's going into psychology now. Like, okay, you know, yeah, I'm prepared to have him the rest of my life in my house. But, I mean, I love that he's doing it, you know. I love that he's doing it. It warms my heart. But those shifts are going to occur, and it worries me to set them in a motion, and they feel trapped, because college feels like that for a lot of kids now.
The philosophy that I'm taking as I lead our teams through the career pathways is we want to make sure that we remember that high school is a great time to try things on, try hats on at very low risk. So we want to make sure, like, that's why I was really proud of our industrial tech team to rethink Project Lead the Way and figure out, like,
Huge.
ways for kids to do that, or ways for kids to move between the different themes in their department. Or when you see our career guide come out, there's in our graphic design pathway, there's actually industrial tech and art classes in there. So we're trying to find ways to get kids connected, allow a kid, if a kid tries something freshman year, hates it, awesome, go try something else. And trying to find different ways for kids to try different things, but also package it in a way that is very understandable for families, because this is can be very complicated. So we want to show that we have a really strong program, and that guide will be very helpful in making sure that things are very easily understood by our families.
Remember, a lot of this is also driven, I know we were talking about it before, but it's being driven by state directive as well, so we have to go down this path.
We were already going down this
We were
path.
already going down, and we now have to go down, so it's, not a whole lot we can do on that end of it.
And I think what you'll end up seeing too is you'll see in the certifications offered, you'll see career pathway endorsement in this, right? It's not that we won't have a pathway endorsement in all of our areas. Like, that's not necessarily feasible, but as we start to build those things out, we'll have specific endorsements show up as certifications.
Nice job
Thank you.
for everybody.
As somebody who didn't decide what he wanted to do till he's about 40, I appreciate the career pathways.
Still thinking about
Thank
it.
you, still thinking about it.
It's still going to be that way, but yes.
Yeah.
Very
Great
much.
work. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think I have a motion and a second. I need a roll call on this. We need a motion to accept the approval of the curriculum guide, right?
Second.
I made a motion and a second. Roll call?
Motion by Carlson, second by Pope. Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. DeMonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope? Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
5 yes, motion carries.
Thank you. Last but not least, we have the health savings account distributions. I move to approve high deductible healthcare plan rates as presented and a $500 board contribution to employee health savings accounts when enrolled in the high deductible healthcare plan for the 2024-2025 fiscal year.
Second.
Further discussion. What we got?
I don't have anything to add from the last board meeting. We talked about this.
Questions, comments, discussion? Roll call.
Motion by Carlson, second by Anderson. Mrs. Pope? Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
5 yes, motion carries.
For the good of the order, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Carlson, second by Pope. Mrs. Squires?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Demonte?
Yes.
Mrs. Pope?
Yes.
Mr. Carlson?
Yes.
5 yes, motion carries.
Good meeting, spirited discussion. Thank you, everybody.